My boots hit the ground with a satisfying crunch as I stepped out of the shuttle. The alien atmosphere was heavy with the scent of ozone and a faint metallic tang that reminded me of blood. The Karavian Military Academy loomed before us, a sprawling complex of razor-sharp spires and iridescent panels that glimmered under a twin-sun sky. It felt less like an institution of learning and more a fortress designed to keep out the unworthy. "Well," Lucas Griffin, my combat engineer, said, slinging his gear bag over one shoulder. "Looks like they went all out with the intimidation factor." "Focus, Griff," I said, my voice calm. "We're not here to admire the scenery." Behind me, Damien Axelrod, our sharpshooter, adjusted his rifle harness with the casual precision of a man who'd been doing it his entire life. Tariq Azim, our medic, brought up the rear, his cybernetic arm gleaming faintly as he checked his diagnostic tablet. We'd been invited to participate in the Universal Soldier Trials, a test of skill, endurance, and ingenuity against the best soldiers in the galaxy. On paper, it was a chance to prove humanity's worth. In reality, it felt like a setup. The Karavians weren't exactly subtle about their disdain. Their insectoid forms, all sharp angles and glinting carapaces, moved with a rigid efficiency as they greeted us at the docking bay. Their leader, a towering creature with crimson mandibles and a glistening emerald exoskeleton, stepped forward. "I am Commander T'Krall," he said, his voice a series of clicks translated by a device around his neck. "You are the Terrans?" There was a pause, just long enough to remind us we didn't belong here. "We are," I said, keeping my tone level. "Captain Nathan Cade, my team is ready for the trials." His mandibles twitched, the Karavian equivalent of a smirk. "We shall see." The first trial was set in a simulated environment known as the Maw. It was a brutal endurance course designed to test a soldier's ability to survive and adapt under extreme conditions. The environment shifted between sweltering heat, toxic storms, and deadly predators, all within a sprawling labyrinth of jagged rock formations. "This is the easy round," T'Krall said, with a chittering laugh as he stood at the Stargate. "If you fail here, there's no need to continue." "Charming guy," Griff muttered. I ignored the comment, focusing on the task ahead. A dozen alien teams were arrayed around us, each bristling with exotic weapons and armor. Some stared at us with open disdain, while others barely even acknowledged our presence. The starting buzzer sounded, and chaos erupted. "Move!" I barked, leading our team into the labyrinth. The heat hit us first, a dry, blistering wave that turned the air into a furnace. My HUD lit up with warnings as temperatures climbed past survivable levels. Griff was already at work, rigging a cooling unit to our suits. "Give me 30 seconds, he said, his fingers flying over the device. We didn't have 30 seconds. A shadow passed overhead, and I looked up to see a massive creature, a mix between a vulture and a dragon, circling above. Its screech sent a shiver down my spine. "Dax, take it down," I ordered. Damien didn't hesitate. He dropped to one knee, shouldered his rifle, and fired. The creature let out a final, piercing cry before crashing into the rocks. "Cooling units online," Griff said, slapping the device onto my suit, then his and the others. "Good work. Let's move," I said, and signed simultaneously. We pushed deeper into the maze, navigating shifting terrain and toxic clouds that rolled in without warning. Tariq's cybernetic arm proved invaluable as he scanned the air for safe routes, guiding us through the worst of it. Halfway through the course, we encountered our first ambush. A team of Xylorans, squat, armored beings with plasma blades, blocked our path. "Terrans," their leader hissed. "Turn back." "We don't have time for this," I said, raising my weapon. They charged. Griff threw up a force shield, deflecting the first wave of attacks. Damien picked off 2 of them before they even got close, while I engaged the leader in hand-to-hand combat. His plasma blade sizzled as it met my combat knife, but his movements were sluggish compared to the fluid martial arts training I'd mastered. Within moments, the Xylorans were down, and we pressed on. The last section of the course was the most treacherous. A narrow pass lined with razor-sharp rocks and patrolled by apex predators. The sun had set, plunging the maze into darkness. "Eyes up," I said, scanning the shadows. A low growl echoed from the cliffs above. "Got movement," Damien said, his rifle tracking the noise. But before the others could establish a more defensive formation, a pack of predatory beasts, wolf-like creatures with glowing eyes, descended on us. "Griff, drones!" I shouted. He deployed a swarm of decoy drones emitting a high-pitched warble that annoyed me and really annoyed them. It drew the beasts away from us. Tariq took the opportunity to patch up a wound on my arm, where a creature's claws had grazed me. "Keep moving," I ordered. We sprinted through the pass, the sounds of battle and snarls fading behind us. The exit loomed ahead, a shimmering portal marking the end of the trial. As we crossed the finish line, the silence was deafening. Takral stood waiting, his mandibles twitching in what I assumed was annoyance. "You survived," he said, his tone begrudging. "We won," I corrected. Back in the barracks, the team was exhausted but victorious. "1 down," Griff said, collapsing onto a bunk. "And 3 to go," I reminded him. Damien was cleaning his rifle, his expression unreadable. Tariq was already reviewing data from the trial, looking for ways to improve. "Good work today," I said, addressing the team. "But we can't let our guard down. This was just the beginning." "Do you think they'll make it harder next time?" Tariq asked. I nodded. "Count on it." As I left the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that Takral and his people were hiding something. The trial had been brutal, but there was a calculated malice behind it, a desire to see us fail. Well, I thought, they're in for a disappointment. Humanity didn't come this far to back down now. The room hummed with a low, steady vibration as the doors to the Zero Nexus slid open. A ripple of tension passed through my team as we stepped inside, our boots clanging softly on the metallic floor. Above us, vast screens displayed the chaotic expanse of the combat simulation. A 3-dimensional grid of zero-gravity arenas stacked like honeycomb cells, each glowing faintly with shifting hues. Obstacles floated in random patterns, and holographic hazards crackled with bright flashes of energy. "This one's different," Griff said, his voice low. "Nothing solid to ground ourselves. They're really leaning into the chaos this time." "They think it'll throw us off," I replied, scanning the setup. "We'll prove 'em wrong. Stay sharp." The other teams were already gathering. The Karavians, with their multi-jointed limbs and rigid, calculated movements, looked right at home in zero gravity. They clung to the walls like spiders, their carapaces shimmering faintly in the artificial light. Nearby, a group of serpent-like Varathi coiled gracefully in mid-air, their smooth motions practically defying physics. We were outnumbered and outmatched in sheer experience. But that was nothing new. "Humans," a Karavian soldier hissed as we passed. His mandibles twitched in amusement, This trial will not forgive your weaknesses. Then it's a good thing we don't have any. I shot back, my voice steady. The simulation timer appeared above us. 30 seconds to initiation. I glanced at my team. Griff, you're on tech support. Keep the drones running and map out the hazards. Damien, you're our eyes and ears. Cover us from the high ground. Tariq, watch our backs and handle the triage. Stay together and adapt to whatever this place throws at us. Let's show them why they shouldn't underestimate us. The buzzer sounded, and everything plunged into weightlessness. The first moments of the trial were a frenzy. Teams scattered into the simulated war zone, weapons firing as energy bolts ricocheted off of floating barriers. Griff launched a surveillance drone to scout ahead, already calibrated to self-correct its inertia in 0G, and its cameras feeding real-time data to our HUDs. I kicked off from a nearby structure, propelling myself forward with controlled bursts from my suit's thrusters. 3 contacts, forward northeast quadrant, Damien called out, his voice crisp over the suit's intercom. It's the Varathi team, moving fast. Griff, give me a diversion, I said. On it. He deployed a decoy drone that pulsed with light, drawing the Varathi's attention. As their eyes veered toward it, Damien took his shot. A silent flash of energy marked the destruction of their lead fighter, sending the others into retreat. Nice work, I said, adjusting our course toward a floating stronghold glowing faintly in the distance. Let's move. As we advanced, the battlefield shifted. A massive platform to our right disintegrated into shards of debris, scattering sharp, glowing fragments into our path. Griff's drone flagged the hazard just in time. Stay clear of that, Griff warned. Fragments are charged. One touch, and we're toast. We navigated carefully, using the floating obstacles for cover. Other teams weren't so lucky. A group of hulking Kratic warriors collided with a shard field, their heavy armor too cumbersome to maneuver quickly. Their screams cut off abruptly as their signals went dark. One less team to worry about, Damien muttered. I spotted a glowing beacon ahead. Our first objective. It was guarded by a squad of Karavians, their limbs coiled around the structure as they fired suppressive shots toward anyone who approached. Damien, flank right, I ordered. Griff, deploy a smoke screen. Tariq, cover me. Griff launched a canister that burst into a cloud of reflective particles, obscuring the Karavian's line of sight. Damien used the distraction to slip around the side, while Tariq picked off one of their sharpshooters with a precise shot. He may not be quite the sharpshooter Damien is, but no one on this team is a bad shot. I made sure of it. I propelled myself toward the beacon, dodging incoming fire. The Karavian leader lunged at me, his claws flashing with energy, but I twisted midair, using the momentum to drive my knife into the joint of his carapace. He let out a chittering scream as I shoved him aside and planted the team's marker on the beacon. Objective secured, I said, catching my breath. As we regrouped, a new alert flashed on our HUDs. The simulation grid had shifted, and a massive stronghold had appeared in the center of the arena. This was the final objective, a fortified position guarded by automated turrets and drones. Looks like everyone's converging on that, Griff said, his tone grim. It's going to be a bloodbath. We're not sitting it out, I announced. But we'll do it smart. Griff, see if you can reprogram one of their drones. Tariq, keep an eye out for stragglers. Damien, you're on overwatch. Griff nodded, his hands already working on a nearby drone that had been disabled in the crossfire with the Karavians. Sparks flew as he bypassed its control circuits, his brow furrowed in concentration. Almost. Got it, he muttered. The drone buzzed to life. its lights shifting from red to green. There, it's ours now. Good. Send it in first, I said. As Griff directed the drone toward the stronghold, Damien spotted movement to our left. Incoming. Looks like a combined force. Karavians and Varathi. They've teamed up. Figures, I said. Hold them off while I clear a path. The drone zipped ahead, drawing fire from the turrets as I maneuvered around the side. Damien's rifle cracked, taking out a Varathi sniper, while Tariq laid down suppressive fire with his sidearm to keep the Karavians from charging recklessly. Griff used the chaos to deploy another decoy, creating confusion among the attackers whose attention was drawn to other, more distant teams. I reached the stronghold's control panel and began hacking into the system. The interface was alien, its symbols shifting unpredictably, but I had dealt with worse. As I worked, a warning flashed across my HUD. Sensors are picking up something, Tariq said. There's interference in the system. It's like the arena's fighting us. Sabotage, I muttered, gritting my teeth. Griff, can you confirm? Checking, Griff said, his hands flying over his tablet. After a moment, he cursed. Yeah, there's a hidden directive in the code. It's targeting our tech specifically. Figures, Damien said, taking out another enemy. They're scared we might actually win. Can you override it? I asked. Already on it, Griff said. But it's gonna take time. We don't have time, I said, glancing at the advancing enemies. Tariq, how's it looking on your end? Not good, he replied. One of theirs is down. Looks bad. Through the smoke and chaos, I saw Tariq move toward the fallen Varathi soldier. He hesitated for a moment, then knelt beside the alien using his medkit to stabilize the injuries. The Varathi's teammates watched warily, unsure whether to attack or assist. Are you seriously helping them? Damien asked over the comms. He's not a threat. This is a trial, not war, Tariq said firmly. And I'm not leaving someone to die if I can save them. The Varathi soldiers' teammates exchanged glances, then lowered their weapons. They retreated, carrying their injured comrade with them. Bold move, Griff said. Hope it doesn't bite us later. We'll deal with it if it does, I said. Griff, how's that override coming? Done, he said triumphantly. Turrets are offline. The stronghold's ours. With the defenses neutralized, we stormed the stronghold and planted our marker. The simulation ended with a blaring siren, and the arena's gravity returned abruptly, dropping us to the ground. Back in the debriefing room, Commander T'Krall regarded us with his usual mix of disdain and reluctant respect. Your performance was sufficient, he said, his mandibles twitching. But do not let this victory make you complacent. The next trial will be far more challenging. Looking forward to it, I said, meeting his gaze. As we left, I caught a glimpse of the other competitors. The Varathi nodded at Tariq, a silent acknowledgement of his actions during the trial. But not all of the faces were friendly. Several teams glared at us with open hostility. Looks like we made an impression, Damien said. Good, I replied. It'll make the next victory even sweeter. The chamber was unsettlingly quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the earlier trials. The walls hummed faintly with an unseen energy, their iridescent surface shifting in colors too subtle to name. In the center of the room, 4 neural interface chairs waited, each glowing softly, cables coiling like serpents at their bases. I scanned the setup, unease knotting in my gut. This wasn't a battlefield, or a strategic exercise. It was something far more dangerous. I've been dreading this one since you briefed us on it, Griff said, his voice barely above a whisper. He was studying the neural chair closest to him, his fingers brushing its polished surface. It's not about our physical skills, but who we are. Exactly right, I replied, grimly aware of this test's contents from the overview given to the leaders of each team beforehand. Stay focused, and remember, this is just another test. It's not real. Damien let out a low, humorous laugh. That's easy to say now. Let's see how we feel when they're digging through our heads. Tariq, as always, tried to anchor us. We've been through worse, he said, though the tension in his voice betrayed him. If we stick together, we'll get through this. We strapped into the chairs, the neural links humming to life as they connected to our suits. A cool sensation crept up the back of my neck as the system calibrated, the interface melding seamlessly with my mind. Above us, a Koravian technician's voice crackled through the comms. This trial, Mind's Edge, will test your psychological resilience. The scenarios are tailored to each participant's neural patterns and emotional history. Success is determined by your ability to maintain cohesion under mental duress. Great, Griff muttered. So, we're playing a game of who breaks first. Not us, I declared. Let's do this. When my vision returned, I was standing in a scorched landscape. Jagged cliffs rose around me, the sky above churning with ash and smoke. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning, and faint cries echoed in the distance. I knew this place. It was the planet Sarak II, the site of the only mission I'd ever failed. The screams grew louder, sharper. Shapes emerged from the haze, familiar and haunting. Civilians. Hundreds of them. Their faces were twisted in terror, their voices begging for salvation. And I had none to give. Captain! One of them cried, a young woman clutching a child to her chest. Help us! I froze, my mind racing. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But the weight in my chest, the sickening pull of guilt, it felt real. The woman's screams cut off abruptly as an explosion ripped through the ground behind her. I stumbled back, shielding my face from the searing heat. When I looked up again, they were gone. You left us! A voice hissed. It was harsh, accusatory, and achingly familiar. You let us die! My chest tightened. I knew whose voice it was. Private Ansel, the last man I'd sent to his death. His broken form emerged from the smoke, dragging himself forward with lifeless eyes. You abandoned us, he said, his voice a hollow echo. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe. This wasn't real. It wasn't real. Nate, stay with me. Griff's voice crackled in my ear, cutting through the horror. You're not alone. The Neuralink, of course. I latched onto his voice like a lifeline. I'm here, I said, my voice steadying. Griff, what do you see? Nothing good, he replied grimly. But we've got this. Focus. Through the Neuralink, I could sense the others grappling with their own nightmares. Griff was standing before an alien artifact, its surface pulsing with an eerie, otherworldly light. A voice whispered in his ear, promising salvation. Technology that could cure disease, end famine, save millions. All he had to do was reach out and take it. But as he hesitated, the artifact pulsed again, and he saw his hands blackened and charred, the price of his ambition. I can fix this, he muttered, his voice desperate. I can make it work. Griff, don't, I said through the link. It's not real. You know better. Yeah, he said, his breath shaky. Yeah, I do. Damien's scenario was quieter, but no less brutal. He was back on his home colony, standing in the ruins of his childhood. The buildings were crumbling, the streets empty. Everyone he'd ever known was gone, and he was utterly alone. Isolation, Damien said softly, his voice tinged with bitterness. Of course they'd go for that. You're not alone, I told him. We're here. The faintest flicker of a smile touched his lips. Yeah, thanks. Tariq's trial was the worst. He stood in a medical bay, 2 patients on gurneys before him. One was his brother, pale and gasping. The simulation's cruelty laying bare the deepest scar in Tariq's past. The other was me, my chest heaving as simulated blood pooled around me. You have to choose, a voice whispered in his ear. You can only save one. I won't, Tariq growled, his voice trembling. I'll save them both. No, the voice insisted. They both die. He faltered, his hands shaking as he moved between the two. Nate, he said, his voice breaking, not to me, but to my simulated body on the gurney. What do I do? You save whoever you can, I said gently. That's all you can do, and that's enough. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and made his choice. The trial pushed us to the brink, but we held together. The neural link was our lifeline, allowing us to share strength when one of us faltered. When the scenarios finally dissolved, leaving us back in the chamber, we were battered, but unbroken. The Karavian technician's voice returned. The humans have passed, he said, his tone laced with disbelief. Commander Takral was waiting for us as we exited the chamber. His mandibles twitched, betraying his frustration. You are persistent, he said, but do not think this means you belong here. I stepped forward, meeting his gaze. We've proven ourselves in every trial. You rigged this one to break us, and we still came through. Takral's eyes narrowed. Watch your words, Captain. No, I said firmly. You watch. We're not just surviving your tests. We're exposing the flaws in your system. You fear us because we don't fit your mold. But maybe it's time you started rethinking the mold. The silence that followed was heavy with tension. For a moment, I thought he might strike me, but instead, he turned and walked away. Back in the barracks, we sat in exhausted silence, the weight of the previous trial still pressing on us. But beneath the fatigue, there was a sense of triumph. We had faced our demons and won. You think they'll keep trying to break us? Damien asked. Absolutely, I said. But they're running out of ideas. And when we're done here? Tariq asked. When we're done here, I said, my voice steady, they'll have no choice but to respect us. The briefing room buzzed with quiet tension. Commander Takral loomed before us, his mandibles twitching in what I had come to recognize as restrained disdain. A holographic display flickered to life behind him, revealing a massive, dynamic map of the final trial arena. Echelon Apex, he began, his voice clipped and precise. This simulation will challenge every aspect of your capabilities, physical, mental, and strategic. It is not just a battle, it is war. The map shifted, highlighting key points, resource hubs, fortified positions, and zones labeled high risk. The arena spanned miles, its diverse terrains ranging from desert plains to dense urban ruins, all under a simulated atmospheric dome. Victory requires either complete elimination of all competitors or control of the central command hub for a full rotation. Tukral continued, his compound eyes fixed on us. Given your past performances, I am curious to see how long you last. I met his gaze without flinching. Long enough. The arena was chaos from the moment we were dropped in. Teams scattered across the battlefield, some moving swiftly to claim strategic points, others disappearing into the terrain to lie in wait. Our pod landed in a rocky wasteland, the air thick with simulated heat waves. Status check, I said, scanning our surroundings. Clear, Damien replied, already perched on a boulder, his rifle sweeping the horizon. No immediate threats. Scouting drone is up, Griff added, his fingers dancing over his tablet. There's a resource cache half a click east, but it's out in the open. Let's secure it before someone else does, I said. We moved quickly, using the jagged terrain for cover. The cache was a small metal crate containing extra ammunition and a portable shield generator. Griff had just finished securing the generator when the first shots rang out. Contact! Damien called, his rifle snapping to position. A group of insectoid Thalorians crested a nearby ridge, their multiple-limbed forms bristling with weaponry. Engage! I shouted. The Thalorians fired first, energy bolts searing through the air. Griff deployed the shield generator just in time, its shimmering dome deflecting the initial barrage. Damien's rifle cracked in response, dropping 2 of them before they could retreat. Push them back, I ordered, advancing with Tariq at my side. Griff hacked into a nearby piece of enemy equipment, turning their turret against them. The Thalorians broke ranks and scattered, leaving the battlefield to us. Nice work, I said, catching my breath. 1 skirmish down, Griff muttered. Only a few dozen more to go. As the trial progressed, the arena grew more treacherous. Resource scarcity and relentless ambushes kept every team on edge. We quickly realized that survival required more than brute force. It demanded alliances. Incoming transmission, Griff said, his tablet lighting up with a request. The screen displayed the sharp features of a Varathi commander. Her smooth, scaled face betrayed no emotion, but her words were clear. Temporary truce? I considered the proposal. The Varathi were formidable opponents, but their numbers had been thinned in earlier skirmishes. Joining forces, even briefly, could give us the edge we needed. Terms? I asked. Mutual defense until the command hub is within reach, she replied. After that, all bets are off. Deal, I said, extending a hand. Her image flickered out, and Damien raised an eyebrow. You trust them? Not a chance, I said. But we need them more than they need us. For now. The combined force of humans and Varathi turned the tide against several smaller teams. Their agility and close combat skills complemented our firepower and tactical precision. For a brief time, The uneasy alliance worked, but it couldn't last. As we approached the central command hub, the Varathi commander turned on us, her soldiers ambushing our position. "Called it," Damien muttered, already firing back. Griff scrambled to reactivate the shield generator, while Tariq provided cover fire. The battle was brutal and close, each side fighting for control of the high ground. In the chaos, Griff's drone picked up a strange signal emanating from the command hub. "Nate, there's something off about this place," he said, his voice tight. "What is it?" I asked. "It's not just the objective," Griff said. "There's a hidden protocol buried in the simulation code. It's monitoring us, our tactics, our decision-making. This whole thing is a test within a test." I grimaced. "A test for what?" Griff hesitated. I think they're evaluating us for something bigger. Maybe even something real." "Figure it out later," I said. "Right now, we survive." The final push to the command hub was a desperate gamble. Teams converged from all directions, each determined to claim the prize. Damien's sharpshooting kept us in the fight, his precision eliminating key threats before they could reach us. At one point, he spotted an enemy sniper perched on a tower, their weapon trained on Tariq. Without hesitation, Damien fired, a shot tearing through the sniper's scope and dropping them instantly. Though unspoken, killing as part of these trials isn't forbidden. In fact, it's often encouraged by the Karavians, indirectly by their insistence on taking no prisoners. "One less problem," he said, his voice calm. Tariq, meanwhile, found himself in a different kind of battle. As we advanced, he came across a fallen Karavian soldier, their wounds severe. Their team had abandoned them, prioritizing the objective over their comrade's life. Tariq knelt beside the soldier, assessing the damage. "They won't make it without help," he said. "We don't have time," I said, my voice hard. "I'm not leaving them," Tariq replied. He worked quickly, stabilizing the Karavian's injuries with a portable medkit. The soldier's eyes flickered open, confusion giving way to gratitude. "Why?" the Karavian rasped. "Because we're not like you," Tariq said simply. The command hub was within reach, but the final obstacle was the toughest yet. Automated turrets and drones guarded the entrance, their firepower forcing us into cover. "Griff, can you disable those turrets?" I asked. "Already on it," he said, his fingers flying over his tablet. Damien picked off the drones one by one, his shots precise even under heavy fire. Meanwhile, I led Tariq in a flanking maneuver, using the terrain to get close enough to plant explosives on the turret mounts. The resulting explosion cleared the way, and we stormed the command hub together. As the final marker was planted, the simulation ended. The arena systems powered down, leaving only silence. Commander Takral appeared on a holographic display, his mandibles twitching with barely concealed frustration. "You have achieved full marks," he said. "A feat no one anticipated." "Except us," I replied, meeting his gaze. Takral's expression hardened. "Do not let this victory delude you. You are still a threat, unpredictable, uncontrollable. That is why these trials were necessary." "And rigged," I said, my voice cold. He didn't deny it. "The galaxy must know what you are capable of and what you're willing to do to survive." I stepped forward. "Then let them know this. Humanity doesn't just survive. We fight, and we're not going anywhere." Back in the barracks, the weight of the trials finally began to lift. Damien leaned against the wall, his rifle slung casually over his shoulder. Griff was tinkering with a drone, his usual grin back in place. Tariq sat nearby, quietly reflecting. "We did it," Griff said, breaking the silence. "Yeah," I replied, "but it's just the beginning." The galaxy had thrown everything it had at us, and we'd risen to the challenge. Humanity was no longer an unknown variable. We were a force to be reckoned with, and they knew it.